drummer for Billy Idol, is in the house. How are you doing, Erik?
I'm doing great. Thanks. What about you, April?
I'm doing good, man. I just threw you right in. We got people here that are waiting and wanting to chat with you, and they'll be posting some questions throughout the
Oh,
evening. If
nice.
something is pertinent, I will dive in and be like, hey, Erik, somebody wants to know about what you just said. I'll let you know,
Okay.
okay?
Sounds good.
Well, thank you so much, man. It's so cool. We were talking earlier, and we actually kind of just missed each other when you were playing in Tulsa at the Hard Rock Casino last week.
I know. I
And
know.
yeah, and my babe Middle Shop was playing over at Riffs for the after party, and but we connected, and I was like, "Hey, man, you want to come on the show?" And you said yes, so I'm super excited to have you here tonight. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, of course. No, it worked out perfectly because we literally got back from the tour yesterday,
Amazing.
and tomorrow morning I'm flying to Sweden for 3 weeks on vacation. So it was the perfect window.
That's nice. That's very cool. It worked out that way. Well, as I mentioned, Erik, the thing I love to do with guests on the show is to kind of go all the way back in time to when you first felt yourself being drawn into drums. Can you take us back to that time?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in Sweden, outside of Gothenburg in this small town, and I think my story is probably pretty similar to yours and a lot of other drummers. You just start ruining all the pots and pans in the kitchen. And then I was lucky that we grew up in a house with a basement. So my parents were able to get me a drum kit when I was like 4 years old. And and that was it for me. I was I was blown away, and this basically that became my focus. We had a lot of other musical instruments around the house, like a piano and guitars and stuff like that. So I became equally interested in those instruments and started playing all of that stuff pretty early on as well. But drums was definitely, the instrument that spoke to me the most.
So you said you were like 4 when you got the drum set, is that right?
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
super lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what kind of kit was it? Was it like a quote toy kit, or was it like a junior
No,
kit, or what was it
what's
like?
funny, and I've talked about this before. It was an old Ludwig kit. It had like a 24-inch bass drum.
It's like
So
bigger than you.
I was practically like standing up
Uh-huh.
playing, and these like 12, 13 toms to 16, like two back toms and a floor tom. I don't know what they were thinking, but I guess, that's how I started. And that's why I still, play 26 and 28-inch kick drums and bigger drums. So it was just sort of,
Like you got used to
it
that
was my
that
breeding ground.
right, like the difference in size between you and the kick. It was always the
Yeah.
kick was big.
Yeah. The only difference is I don't have to stand up and play anymore.
Right, right. Well, did you start taking lessons right away, or were you just like, "Hey, I'm just gonna rock out"? And how old were you when you
uh,
started taking lessons?
I may have been like 8 or 9 when I started with lessons. Like, no, at first it was very much like a garage drummer approach. I started playing along with records, and luckily found other musicians to start playing with immediately. And then of course I got into finding a teacher and learning the proper way of holding your sticks, and technique, and reading, and starting to read snare drum solos and all of that stuff. And yeah, I just got heavily into it. Like, I wanted to learn everything, every style of music, you know and especially learning how to read. All of that stuff was really important to me. So it became a life education in
Yeah.
music.
Did you do drums in school or percussion in school?
No, I didn't really have a musical program in place until I went to music college, down the road. So up until then, it was just regular, elementary, high school, senior high, and all of that stuff. But like I said, I did start taking lessons, and I played in a bunch of different bands. And when I was probably 14 or 15, I joined the high school big band.
Nice.
So I was in a couple of different big bands growing up, and that was great because I was a huge jazzer, still am. back then, but just to be able to swing with a big band and reading charts and all that stuff, it was a dream. It was so much fun, and that was definitely by far my biggest lesson in reading charts, because that's how you basically follow the band, or you have to lead the band. And so that was a great lesson for me.
Wow, that's amazing. And so, would you say growing up, you were more attracted to jazz music above any other genre?
No, that came a little bit later on. Probably when I was 13,
Mhm.
14. It definitely started out with rock and roll, and the sort of quick progression from that was that I discovered all these other styles of music because of finding out about different drummers. So it would be early guys. Obviously, I grew up listening to Kiss,
Excellent.
and a lot of people make fun of that, but
Hey man, you had to get like the
they
little baseball cards that you get from the ice cream truck, the baseball
oh,
cards
no,
with the
no, no,
gum.
that oh, totally. No, it just kickstarted the whole thing, because it wasn't just about music. It was
Right.
about the whole
The whole
the
package,
whole
man. Yeah,
machine, and
yeah.
like wow, how's this even possible?
Bigger
So
than life stuff.
right, that
Yeah.
whole aspect became super attracted to me.
Yeah.
But then I got into bands like Deep Purple, AC/DC, Black Sabbath, Metallica, all the glam bands and the Motley Crue and stuff like that. But then I discovered bands like Toto, drummers like Jeff Porcaro,
Amazing.
and that kind of opened up doors to guys like Dave Weckl and Chick Corea Electric Band. And then I discovered Tony Williams and Miles Davis's quintet from the 60s. And that just kind of changed my life. And I got heavily into jazz from that point on. And that's basically what I was going to do. Like all throughout music college, that was my focus. I was going to, move to New York and be a jazz drummer. Look what
Wow.
happened.
Wow, yeah. Well, tell everybody
What
what
went
I
wrong?
know what went wrong here, man. So, tell everybody what happened next. Like, what was your first big opportunity?
So I moved to LA when I was 20. So that's back in 97. And I think I sort of just hit the ground running, like most people, just running around trying to meet people, go to clubs, trying to, sit in. There were some jam nights at different places that I found out about. And you kind of just start, showing up and pestering people. And then eventually someone will give you a chance, like, all right, this kid has been, bothering us for like 2 weeks now. Come up and
Right.
play a song, and hopefully, you don't completely embarrass yourself, and maybe there's someone there that, like, hey, they're looking for a drummer for something. My biggest opportunity in terms of finding jobs was uh, very quickly a friend of mine had recommended me to a guy named Barry Squire, who used to work for Columbia Records as a A&R person. Now, he had started a side business, which was basically recruiting and recommending musicians for upcoming tours. So a lot of management companies, labels would come to him and say, like, hey, so and so just got signed, we need a touring band. And so he would have a list of people, sort of specified in different categories, like this guy or this girl is a great pop drummer, or looks like this, or blah blah blah. A little bit too specific maybe, but so I started getting calls from him to audition for different people. And the first sort of professional situation that I came into, where there was, you had a salary, and you were going on a national tour opening for other bands, and you sort of had someone to help set up your drums and everything. It was a folk singer on Maverick Records. His name is Jude.
Maverick
And
Records, isn't that the same label as Lannis Morissette was on? Is that right?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So that was sort of, yeah, I guess that was the first tour where it's like, oh, okay, maybe this is possible. And I
Wow.
was like 20, 22 at the time. I'd done other tours before, but it was like, more like you hopped in an RV and you had to help drive the bus and unload all the equipment,
Right, right.
and played colleges up and down, the coast all the way from, San Diego up to, Seattle. It had been situations like that. So this was a whole new level for me. Like, wow,
Wow.
Um, so yeah, that obviously, just kept motivating me to just to, move forward in the best way that I could.
So I know, Eric, that you've performed with Jackson Brown, Donna Summer, lots of folks like that. How did those gigs come to be, and where did they fall in your career?
Um, Donna Summer, I just happened to know the musical director, who's a dear friend of mine named Randy Mitchell, great guitar player. We had done a bunch of gigs around town, and it was the same thing again, which this is normally how it happens. It's just word of mouth of friends that get to know you and seen you play and done a few gigs with you, and then you get recommended. So that's how that came about. And I never really toured with her. I would go out and do a few gigs here and there. But it was sad. I did probably her last gig before she passed away. And then I actually played on a record that came out after she had passed, which was kind of weird. Um, and same thing kind of happened with Cher, Leanne Rhymes, anyone that I've been lucky, to play with. Um, they all sort of happened that way. Like again, it was in my early 20s when uh, I was fortunate enough to meet the Barry Squire that I was just telling you about. But everything else usually just came through recommendations or word of mouth, or just being, at that point, I'd been able to get to know quite a few people around Los Angeles. So
Eric, is it
yeah,
is
that's how
it
that happened.
is it a coincidence that you and Mark Schulman both played for Cher and Billy Idol? Because I was just thinking about that. I was like, how did
Oh
that
yeah,
happen?
no. Mark is an old friend of mine. I love him. He was kind enough to actually, back in the day, I had my own band playing guitar and singing, and Mark was playing drums with me.
Are you serious? That's crazy.
Yeah, no, he's
So,
great. He's great.
small world.
Oh, totally, totally.
Yeah, and he went on. Of course, I saw him on Cher's tour a few years back. It's probably 6 or 7 years ago, and then of course
Yeah,
did the Pink thing for a very long time. And so I just think that's pretty ironic that you guys both played for Cher and Billy Idol. The chances of that seem to be slim, you know.
yeah, and I met him. Oh God, it may have been my first year of living in Los Angeles. I was looking for a new drum kit, and I answered an ad that said, "Hey, someone is selling this type of kit." Like again with a bigger bass drum that I wanted, and I called up, this number and drove over to wherever his house was, and there's Mark Schulman opening the door.
Crazy.
So I ended up buying a drum kit from him, and then I think about a year or so later, I ran into him at a party because we had a lot of mutual friends. We realized, and then we just sort of became, friends that way. So yeah, it's funny how things happen, when you're in the thick of it in Los Angeles,
Right, right.
because you just don't, there's a lot of great players all over the world, and everyone can have obviously whichever level of success they end up having, but there's something truly unique, and especially during that time, and obviously way before I even, moved to LA, but the sort of coming together of so many great musicians, and the community that we have here is quite special. So yeah, you can run into pretty much anyone.
That's awesome. So you've been with Billy now for like over 10 years, right?
12 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And would you say this is like one of your favorite gigs to play? I know like whenever I play this stuff with Rebel Yell, it's like so fast. It's just like going, the whole night almost, and you're like working up a sweat. Do you have a good time playing this kind of music? Are you
Oh
having a
my
lot of fun
God.
with
Yeah.
this? Yeah.
To this day,
Yeah.
it's still if not more exciting, because we also mix it up with a bunch of material that maybe Billy hasn't played in a long time, and we record new music that gets heard for the first time. And so it's not just, even though Billy has an incredible catalog of singles, and they have been popular for such a long time for a good reason, because they're just timeless, wonderful songs. But I'm glad that it's not like one of those situations where like we're gonna have to give them the greatest hits every night, exactly the same every night for 12 years.
Right, right.
So, we change up arrangements, we mix in some deep cuts from older records. And like I said, the newer material that I've been lucky to be in the studio with them to record. So there's never a dull moment in terms of that. Just because I played with them for 12 years now doesn't mean that I'm, ever sick of, playing those songs.
And you guys tour regularly. I mean, you're touring like every year, right? Just about.
Yeah, we do. And uh, it used to be longer tours when I started. We could be sometimes gone for like a couple of months, but then he would give us like a break, a week break, in between the 2 months. Um, so now, we might be gone for like a month, 3, 4 weeks usually. We have a pretty long 5-week Canadian tour coming up in July. So it doesn't become just tedious from a touring point of view, in terms of constant traveling and missing loved ones at home, all of that stuff that can, I mean, let's face it, it can get to you after a while,
Yeah.
different hotels every night, or um so it ends up being maybe like 5 months out of the year, if you kind of spread it out, which is perfect for me, because I run my own recording studio and produce records and do sessions for people as soon as I'm home. So I personally love that balance.
Well, yeah, and
So
to not just be in one area of music, just drumming, you get to fulfill these other maybe needs that you have musically, or desires. And in fact, I was glad you brought that up. Tell us a little bit about your studio and what music you're putting out from there.
so early 2020, right before the pandemic, I moved from Studio City up into the mountains, about an hour away from LA, and built a recording studio with the intent of it being like almost like a retreat, where people can get out of LA, because that idea was always appealing to me. Like, wow, you read about all these records, they go up to like Woodstock or Bearsville or wherever, and they all kind of just camp out and make a record. And so that was sort of my basic idea. And little did I know that, COVID was going to hit and basically shut everything down, um, for a few years. But it ended up being great, because I was able to take my time to get everything up and running. And I still had clients, come up to record. In fact, people loved coming up here because they wanted to get out of LA, where it was just chaos and everyone was afraid of anyone sneezing in their general direction.
Right, right.
But it's called Twin Pines Recording, and I have a website, which is twinpinesrecording.com, if anyone wants to check it out. And yeah, I mean, I do everything. I mean, you can visit the site and take a look. Otherwise, I would be happy to show you around a bit. But I have all kinds of instruments and amps and several drum kits, obviously, upright piano, Wurlitzer, tons of gear, microphones, everything, that you could, possibly
Like a
need.
kid in a candy store, man. That's awesome.
Well, it's just what's really, really nice is that people walk in there and just feel inspired and
Yeah,
creative, which is, you know, the best. That's obviously what you want for,
right.
for an artist. And just feel comfortable. And it's not, you don't walk into like a top studio in Hollywood with a big shiny SSL console and intimidating photos of Frank Sinatra and everyone and their brother that's been there to record. And you're on the clock, and like now you have to like, you know, you got to do your best because you only have 3 days to get XYZ done. Instead, you come to an environment where, my whole control room window overlooks mountaintops and pine trees, and it's a very just homey, comfortable feeling.
Yeah, very relaxing, like you
Um,
said, and something that is inspiring for folks when they come up there. That's really cool.
yeah, and I have the ability to record a whole band at the same time, basically. At least the basic, like drums, bass, guitars, piano, keyboards, and even put a singer in the mix as well. So, yeah, it's just what I love to do when we're not touring. So,
Do you
yeah.
record yourself there very often?
Oh, all the time. I mean, 80% of the stuff that I do is either a producer and an artist they come up here. So I run the studio. I do all my engineering and mixing and all of that stuff. But a lot of it is, of course, people from all over the world. They find me online, and they send me sessions to record to, and that's how a lot of it happens. And that's, thank God, I had quite a bit of that during the COVID years, where people were still making music, of course, but they don't want to be in the same room with anyone
Right,
else.
right. Yeah, there was a lot of home recordings and, alone time in a studio at that time for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Is there a favorite kit that you like to play on when you're recording?
Uh yeah, I have a bunch of different Ludwig kits, and sometimes I'll use a kick drum from that, or snare drum, or floor. I mix and match a lot, but I generally try to have like kind of like three kick drums ready to go, with a specific sound for each. So if I like, okay, someone sends me something like, okay, I think I need this type of kick drum for that, and then I'll have an array of snare drums and toms that are sort of tuned differently with the appropriate heads. So you don't have to sit there and like, change heads and tune for hours before you get the right sound. Like, it's nice to be able to just listen to a song and go like, okay, I think this kick drum and this snare drum and this, right, just to kind of piece it together that way. And sometimes it just happens that one unified kit actually works in that same regard. So, but they're all basically Ludwig kits. Some new, some old. You know, some are over 100 years old. I'm
Right.
really afraid to change drum heads on those because they still have calfskin heads on them.
Oh my
So,
gosh, wow.
like, yeah, I made the mistake of doing that with like a really narrow kick drum. It was probably like, it was 24 inches by like maybe 12, and it sounded fantastic. And I started having a crack on the batter head side because, again, it was a calfskin head. It was super old. And I was like, all right, well, this is going to break at any moment now. And I decided to take it off. And all this flaky white stuff from the paint and from the head, like it fell apart. And it's
Wow.
still sitting on my shelf. Like, oh, I gotta go. I gotta bring this to the drum doctor or something, and have him just like, can you please put my poor baby together?
Right,
Yeah.
right. You like killed the
So
mojo of the
yeah,
drum.
so advice to other drummers out there, and I think most people know this, but yeah, if you get a hold of an old drum with a calfskin head, just let it be. And the best part of that about that is that it's been on there for such a long time that it's already found its sweet spot. It's kind of tuned itself.
Oh, that's really
So I
crazy
would,
to think of it like that. But yeah, that's got to be true, right?
yeah. I mean, and it's the same aging aspect that a guitar or a piano or something can have. That you really need to know what you're doing if you're gonna sort of make a change. And at the time, I just wasn't thinking clearly. So, lesson learned for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's good to know. I don't know how many drummers out there have run across an old drum that still has a calfskin head on it. I mean, that's probably not super common. I know we got some guys here in Dallas that have tons of gear, and I've gone through all his stuff. He has used gear that he sells at a big, big
Yeah,
sale every year, and I haven't run across anything like that. So, but if I ever do, now I
yeah.
know.
It could be a really, really beautiful thing once you find those. Again, because they just have a sound that it just can't be produced with a new drum or a new head.
Right.
It has to like marinate for 30, 40 years.
Right. Well, speaking of your gear, I was watching something earlier. I think it was with Modern Drummer, and you were kind of giving a tour of your kit
Oh yeah,
that you go on tour
the
with. This, yeah, it's like a maple.
rig rundown.
Yeah, I think it was like a maple Ludwig. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a classic maple. Yeah,
And Sabian cymbals. I think Paragon, right?
there's some of those, and then there's I think the ride is called the Bash ride or something like that, and the hi-hats are like AAX. The China, I'm not even sure, to be honest, but they're all Sabian.
Yeah,
That I know.
yeah. And one thing I thought that was interesting, and I was wondering if you're still doing this, is you said that your snare drum moves around on you a lot, and you have it held down by sandbags. Is that right?
Yeah. Again, I'm not sure. I think I talk about it in that video as well, because it just, if I don't use one or two sandbags, the snare drum just keeps coming towards me. And I mean, yeah, with Billy, it's a very hard hitting gig. So of course it makes sense that every time you hit the snare drum, some sort of vibration will happen, and the snare will just keep coming towards you. So that was the only way to sort of keep it in place.
How many pounds are you having to put on there? I wonder.
Oh, I don't think it has to be that much. It's like it could probably be 10 or 15.
Yeah.
But that makes a big difference. I
Yeah.
mean, depending on where you place it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you have to have the brackets a certain way so it doesn't tip a certain way, and then you usually I have like the 3 bracket thing, and then I have the single bracket towards me with the sandbag on top of that.
I thought that was
So
cool.
that's a
And interesting. I've had that problem before myself, but the kit that I played now has the snare stand is connected to a rack, so
oh,
it
that's
can't go
smart.
anywhere. So it just has a post, so it doesn't move around. But especially if I play on other people's kits, I don't know
Yeah,
what it is about their snare stands. Maybe I use like the DW like double brace jobs, and so it's pretty like really
right. Those are
sturdy.
sturdy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But some of the guys' kits that I've played on before, it's like, yeah, the snare's moving all over the place. I'm like, yo, what are you gonna do about that?
Well, because you play, don't you? You play in a Billy Idol cover band, right? Don't
Yeah,
you?
Billy Idol tribute called Rebel Yell. Yeah.
Oh,
And so,
fantastic.
yeah.
So how do you like playing those songs?
Oh, I love
It's
it.
fun,
And
right?
in fact, yeah, I just got in this group about 4 months ago or something like that. And
Yeah.
it's a good friend of mine started the band a few years back, and no, I really love it. And I was intrigued because when I was watching some things about you, you're talking about tracks and different things like that. And we use tracks on a few songs they didn't used to, but I play tracks a lot in bands, and I really am used to it. And kind of like you described with your metronome, it's like it. I love playing with a click. I've gotten so used to it. It's like one less thing to worry about for me. Like the time's cared for. I can go and have a good time and just dance all around there, and I'm good to go. I don't have to worry about, like you
Yeah.
said, like feeling kind of amped up and you're going too fast, or the band pulling you too far one way or the other. You can really stay on point. But what I was going to ask you about is I'm actually using like an octopad kind of thing for a lot of the hand claps and all that stuff, but
Oh, okay.
you're using tracks for that, or you're not using any kind of electronic pads, are you?
Not at the moment. No, we used to have I think it's Korg that makes them. It's called a wave drum. And we only had it for like 2, 3 songs. And it would be like almost like a conga slash timbali sound in the center, and then on the edges it would be almost like a rim shot of some sort. Like there were a few songs where I would play that live, um, but we haven't played any of those songs for a couple of years now. So no, it's all just my organic kit, obviously, and then some backing tracks.
Yeah, I'm kind of
But the backing tracks aren't. I mean, it's not. It's like literally we have hand claps on Dancing with Myself.
eyes without a
We have them
face,
Eyes
flesh.
Without a Face, of course,
Yep.
Flesh. And
Hot
then
in the
there,
City, maybe.
no,
Okay.
no, no, there isn't much else. Um, Maybe there have been more stuff in the past, but yeah, I can't think of anything else.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm jealous, man. Because like I got my little electronic pad over there, and I'm like doing all the claps and whatnot, and playing the drums at the same time.
Oh yeah,
I'm like, I'm gonna
like
play.
you
I'm gonna play
wish you had
this.
a third
I
arm.
know. I'm like, I'm gonna like play this this interview for the guys in the band and be like, hey, this is what he does. Can I do that?
That's, I mean, hey, these days that's not a difficult thing at all. You
Yeah.
just get something like Ableton or something, or Pro Tools on a laptop, and
Oh yeah. Yeah.
just listen to the record. And it doesn't even have to be exactly the same sounds, as long as it's, just, I mean, how different can hand claps be around the
Right.
world? You know what
Have
I
you
mean? We're just,
have you ever used a like karaoke version to make your own tracks before? It's a really yeah,
no,
it's a really cool website where you can actually pick the instrumentation. Like it has all the instruments, even like the entire song. But it's
yeah.
been re-recorded by somebody else. But it sounds pretty dang close. And then you could just go through and take out all the things. So you could like go and delete everything except the hand claps, for example,
Oh,
and
there
then
you
have it
go.
have it done like that. But now that I've learned this, man, I have to keep doing it because I'm like I worked hard to figure all that stuff out and have the third arm. So now
Hey, listen, that's
you
way more
know,
impressive than what I'm doing. I just have to, press a button, and off I go. You
right.
actually have to play it.
I think it's in Flesh for Fantasy where you do the boom and you're like hit the floor and flip the stick up, right? You know what I'm talking about? I think it's in Flesh for Fantasy.
I don't do any stick flipping. I
Okay,
think I
maybe
know what you're talking about. It's a previous drummer
previous
that
drummer.
made
Okay,
made a big deal out of
the
throwing this stick up into the rafters and then trying
yeah,
to catch it.
I'm making the effort to do that as well. I have to send you videos so you can laugh at me.
Well, if you ever saw me doing that, you'd see me having a concussion a moment afterwards. So it's not stick throwing or twirling and all that. It's just, it's never anything I spent any time doing. Maybe I should.
Well,
I'll let you know.
check out Chip Ritter if you're not familiar with him. He's the guy who was on David Letterman, and he actually juggles his drumsticks while he's playing. It's absolutely
Oh,
amazing.
Jesus.
Yeah, the guy is incredible. I mean, he's an take away all that. The guy's an incredible drummer. He's an instructor. He's written some books for Mill Bay. Just incredible drummer. But then he throws all that on top of it, and it's just like, whoa! You'll just be blown away.
It's
It's
like
so fun
that.
to watch.
God, what was that video that came out years ago?
Oh, the Mad Drummer.
The Right.
Yeah,
They played the ZZ Top.
yeah, a Sharp Dressed Man.
Yeah.
Yep, it's awesome.
It was out of control. Oh
That's
my God. So
Steve
funny.
Steve Morris, I believe is his name. Super nice dude, and the guy again, you know, they start out, you know, at the base. They're this phenomenal drummer, and then they got all
Yeah.
this flash on top of it. It's just like it's so crazy, man.
Well, I mean, he just takes it to a whole other level.
Absolutely. I'm gonna
Yeah. And that's not even remotely easy to do. Like I tried a few of the moves just for fun.
right,
And like, I completely messed up. I couldn't even, keep a beat going and,
right.
move around like that. So that's definitely a skill set.
It's good times. So, Eric, what is the next show coming out here? You said you're going to Sweden for vacation, and then are you guys coming back and you're going to be playing around a little bit more with Billy Idol?
Yeah, we have the rest of the year laid out pretty clearly. We're going to go down to Cabo for a private show at the end of June. And then we have a couple of US dates at the end of July. And then we do that 5-week Canadian tour starting in Vancouver. We end up in Newfoundland,
Wow,
which I've been to Canada quite a bit, but I've never been that far out. So that's going to be amazing to see Halifax and those areas.
wow, that's really cool. That's
And
awesome.
then we have some scattered stuff throughout the fall, but then the new record comes out, which I'm super, super proud of and very, very excited for everyone to hear. We did most of the drums at Sunset Sound, but we also did some drums here at my studio. So of course I'm very excited about that.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
So that comes out in October, along with uh, a documentary film that's been made about Billy for the last few years. So I think the idea is for those two things to come out at the same time. And then we're going to support a lot of that, of course, all of next year. But then we do go to Australia and New Zealand like mid-November for like a month. So yeah, I mean there's again, like I said, it's great because we're out for like a month or so, and then we're home for maybe a month, and then we're out again. So it's the perfect schedule for me personally.
Yeah, that's a great match, and what a lot of fun places to visit too. I'm jealous. The New Zealand
Oh
stuff has
yeah,
got to be
it's
beautiful.
oh my God, it's one of my favorite places to go. We've done it a few times now, and then last year we were in South America, which I'd never been there before, and we played places like Rock and Rio and stuff like that, which was
Amazing.
that was one of those childhood dreams that I'd had, and
Wow.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people had. So it was a lot of sort of bucket list gigs that we could cross off by being down there. So
Wow. That's amazing.
yeah,
I do see a few questions here. I know we're a little over, but if you don't mind, I'm just going to throw these few questions in here for
yeah,
you.
of
Cool. Thanks,
course.
man. So Bethany asks, what band or musician would be your dream to play with?
Ooh, I mean, I feel like I'm already there with Billy because that's definitely a gig that I've been wanting for a long. I started doing sessions for Billy when I was 23, maybe.
Wow, really
I met him
amazing.
through another producer. I mean, his longtime producer, Keith Forsey. I was working with Keith on another project, and so Keith brought me into the loop, and I would get called in every other year or so, like, "Hey, Billy's recording new demos." Nothing that I recorded back then has ever been released, but maybe some of the songs have been redone and rewritten, and now they've sort of been completed in a different way. So that was, without a doubt, a dream situation to be part of since my early 20s. And my sister used to listen to Billy all the time when I was a kid, so, and she was a few years older than me. Um, so he's been sort of in my orbit for a long, long time. So without a doubt, is he a dream gig come true for sure.
That's reminds me a lot of Matt Starr's story a little bit. He was a big Kiss fan,
Oh yeah, of
and then
course.
now he tours with Ace Frehley, and it's just something to be said for having those dreams and going after them. It's really true. Anything is possible if you set your mind to it. I mean, I really truly believe that in so many aspects of life, and I mean, you're walking proof of that. I mean, if you have a dream, you just go after it and work hard enough, and you could attain that. You know?
Yeah, the trick is don't have a plan B.
Yeah. Yep. I got you. Yeah. Yeah.
The first thing is you need to have supporting parents.
Right.
You need to have a basement
Yeah.
and no plan B.
Or an
That's
attic or
it.
something.
Like
Yeah.
that's like that's literally the
Right. When you have no other option,
yeah.
that's where you'll end up. Yeah, I got you. All right, we got a question from Jennifer here. She says, "What's the most hilarious fan encounter you've ever had?"
Whew. Wow. Well, there's quite a few, and maybe a few that I probably shouldn't even mention on air.
Yeah,
Oh God.
the
Trying to
family
think if
show.
there's yeah, exactly. There are kids listening.
Right, right.
Um I, I can't think. Well, so this is not necessarily. This is a fan that was clearly obsessed with Billy, and this is something that happened in South America, which we were all just like we couldn't believe that someone would behave this way. We had done a show somewhere, and we're all at the airport, and of course, there could be sometimes hundreds of people at the airport with with a Billy Idol album that he that they want to have him sign. But there was this one particular guy that wouldn't let off Didn't matter how many times he got shoved away by security, he found his way back in. And I would say easily 30 times. And
Oh
we're all
my
like, we
gosh.
just like, what is wrong? Well, first off, what was wrong with the security people that we had that? I mean, they should have just
Right, right.
really shoved him
Yeah,
away.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like this guy was just nuts. He just kept coming at Billy, and everyone's like, what on earth is going on? So you see stuff like that where that sort of level of obsession um, has just taken over people. And so, again, that's something that pertains more to his situation, of course. Uh, Again, I think it's probably healthiest to keep mine, uh, to keep them quiet.
I got you. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
I mean, even at my level of gigs, there, when somebody asks that question, I'm not going to answer the things that have happened. And especially as a woman, it's even more weird. So you have to be. So like we do have those kids watching. All
Yeah,
right, we got
exactly.
we
Exactly.
got another question here from Louis. Louis in Florida. He says, "Have you experienced an embarrassing moment during a performance?"
Oh my God. So many. So many. I mean, it's one thing to make a mistake, and the whole band has to basically readjust to you, and that's certainly happened. But I'll try to make this short. One of the best stories ever. We played Austin City Limits, opening for the Foo Fighters. So we're playing earlier in the day, and it was super hot. We had the sun basically right, you know, coming at us, and everyone is stumbling around on stage. People are saying like, "Oh, I think I'm about to have a heat stroke." Like it was gnarly. It was so hot, and my eyes so much like I have so much sweat coming into my eyes that I can't even keep my eyes open.
Oh my gosh.
It's painful. I'm sure it's happened to you many times. And so my drum tech, Trevor, usually, he always sits right next to me. And we always have this sort of communication between us. If something goes wrong, or if I need something to be louder or lower, or like, hey, I need more water. Like we have this very advanced sort of body language between us that we've developed. And I'm pounding away at a song, and it's loud and it's sweaty and everyone's going crazy. And I'm asking, like, I can't see, you're gonna have to wipe my eyes with something. And normally he's on it, like he's super reliable. And I'm sitting there pounding away, nothing is happening. And I'm thinking to myself, like, geez, what is he doing? It's like, you have to wipe it. Like, you have to wipe my eyes. Like, I can't see. And then it takes probably another 30 seconds. And then he finally does it, right? And then after the show, he comes running and goes, Erik, I am so, so sorry. I thought you said wipe my ass. So he's standing behind me as I'm sitting there playing. He's
Oh.
standing there with a rag in his hand,
Uh-huh.
trying to figure out how he can wipe my
He was there for
ass.
you, man. He was there for
Yes,
you. Like he was totally there for you.
that's a committed drum tech.
That is a committed drum tech right there.
And so, I mean, as far as things that have happened on stage, there's a million things that I could probably think of, but that one always comes to mind. And it's just, I mean, I was literally on the ground, crying, laughing when he told me. I mean, can you imagine? And
No.
especially, can you imagine if he would have tried?
I know he's
Like,
like he's like
what?
like reaching down your pants in the back. You're
What
like,
on earth
what
are
are you
you doing?
doing? That's amazing. And that can only happen
So,
in Texas too, by the way. Sweating down here. Oh my God, man. It's like somebody dumped a bucket of salt water on your head or something when you're playing
yeah.
Texas. It's terrible. Eyes burning the whole
Oh,
nine.
yeah.
Yeah, really, really
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I realize that we're quite over right now, so I'm gonna let you get out of here. And man, thank you so much, Erik, for joining.
Hey,
And
thank
it's
you.
such a pleasure to meet you and get to know you and hear your story. And
Likewise.
anybody
Thanks,
joined,
April.
yeah, totally. Anybody joined late, be sure to watch this replay. And this will be available on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/breast cancer can stick because it was too long. So be sure and watch it there. And thanks again, Erik. I look forward to talking to you again real soon. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Take care, my
All right.
friend.
Have a great night.
You too. Take care. All right, everybody, give it up for Erik. So cool to have him on the broadcast.